If someone had told me that one sentence could destroy an entire marriage overnight, I never would have believed them. But then my husband looked me in the eyes, pointed his finger in my face, and shouted, "He is not your son, stop trying to correct him." The room went completely silent. My parents stared at him in shock. My sister stood frozen, red wine soaking through her favorite dress. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled, picked up my purse, and walked away. By the time the sun came up the next morning, every luxury they'd been enjoying because of my hard work had completely disappeared. My name is Natalie. I'm 31, and I work as a financial risk manager in Chicago. Every day, my job is to analyze bad investments, calculate risk, and cut losses before they become disasters. I just never imagined the biggest financial liability I'd ever face would be sleeping beside me every night. When I married Brandon, he convinced me he was a successful businessman with unlimited potential. The truth came out fast. His consulting company was barely surviving, and I quietly became the one paying every major bill, mortgage, vacations, groceries, every luxury expense. The biggest expense of all was his 17-year-old son, Ethan. One of the most entitled teenagers I have ever met. Ethan treated my premium credit card like it belonged to him. Designer clothes, an elite private school, an expensive luxury SUV I personally bought. And every time I tried to say something, Brandon defended it. According to him, Ethan deserved the best. Neither of them contributed a single dollar to the lifestyle they were living. Everything exploded during my parents' anniversary dinner at a beautiful French restaurant. The evening was perfect, until Ethan kicked the table on purpose after my sister politely asked him to move. A full glass of red wine spilled straight onto her expensive dress. Instead of apologizing, he laughed, called my entire family dramatic and uncultured. I stood up and calmly asked him to apologize. Before Ethan could even respond, Brandon slammed his hand down on the table in front of everyone and shouted that Ethan wasn't my son and I needed to know my place. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't raising a family. I was financing two people who had absolutely no respect for me. I quietly paid for my parents, my sister, and myself. Then I left Brandon sitting there with the entire restaurant bill. On the drive home, I made a decision that would change everything. That night, I canceled every credit card tied to my accounts, removed myself from Ethan's private school tuition, canceled his insurance, and arranged for the luxury SUV, the one that legally belonged to me, to be repossessed before sunrise. The next morning, I stood on my front porch with a cup of coffee, watching a tow truck load Ethan's prized SUV onto a flatbed. Brandon demanded the driver stop. His card was declined. Ethan's card was declined too. I'd already closed every single account. Watching the neighbors witness their perfect image collapse was almost as satisfying as watching that truck disappear down the street. When Brandon threatened to empty our joint savings, I calmly told him something he clearly didn't know. There had never been one. Every major asset I owned had been legally protected before we even got married. He never had access to my wealth. He only ever had temporary access to my kindness. And he had just lost it. The consequences came fast. Ethan got pulled from his elite private school the moment tuition stopped. His public meltdown got filmed and spread across social media, tearing apart the image he'd spent years building. Brandon applied for loan after loan trying to recover. Every single one got rejected, because without my financial support, his business was worth almost nothing. Then his relatives showed up at my house, accusing me of financial abuse, threatening to destroy my career if I didn't restore Ethan's lifestyle. They thought fear would make me fold. Instead, I laid bank records on the table proving they'd secretly enjoyed thousands of dollars in vacations, shopping trips, and dinners, all paid for through accounts connected to my finances. Their confidence disappeared almost instantly. That's when I decided to dig even deeper into Brandon's finances. And what I found was far worse than reckless spending. Buried under years of lies were more than $150,000 in secret loans, carrying forged documents with my name and my professional credentials on them. Someone had copied my signature, used my spotless financial reputation to secure massive amounts of debt I never knew existed. Working with a forensic accountant, I traced every dollar, and the money hadn't gone toward supporting our family at all. It had been quietly funneled into shell companies controlled by Brandon's brother-in-law, an organized fraud scheme built entirely around stealing my identity and draining my future. By the time mediation arrived, Brandon walked in smiling next to an expensive attorney. They demanded alimony, Ethan's tuition, the SUV back, every privilege I had taken away. They expected me to fold under pressure. Instead, I calmly placed our signed prenuptial agreement on the table, proving Brandon had legally waived every claim to my assets. Then I handed over the full forensic report. Forged signatures, fraudulent loans, identity theft, money laundering. The confidence vanished from every face in that room. Within minutes, the attorney withdrew from the case entirely to protect himself. The mediator recognized immediately this wasn't a divorce dispute anymore. It was a criminal investigation. Brandon sat there completely speechless, watching every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal collapse around him at once. The man who once told me to know my place forgot one very important thing about who he married. My entire career is built around one skill: identifying dangerous risks before they destroy everything around them. In the end, the greatest loss I ever cut from my life wasn't a failing business or a bad investment. It was the husband who genuinely believed my success belonged to him.